Hello, good evening and welcome to NARC Live on Wednesday the 18th of May 2022, coming to you live from Norfolk on the east coast of England with Tammy M0TC.
Hello.
And me, David G7URP. Good to see you. On tonight's show, we find out more about the clever Geochron timepiece and the man behind it. We reveal the summer programme for NARC online, in person and our events. And we reveal and find out what on earth is this. Now, we haven't had quite so many inches, certainly not enough for 2 pages as we did last time. So there's a chance for you, if you know what that is, or you think you know, have a good guess, then drop us a note on Facebook or BATC in the next few minutes, and we will enter you along with the others and find out what this strange object is. But first, as I said at the top of the programme, this is Wednesday the 18th of May, and it's live. And something should be ringing bells if you transmit on 10 to 110 megs, because today is the date, the 18th of May, that the ICNUT regulations come in for that frequency band. If you remember before, it was just 110 megs and up, which is pretty much 2 meters VHF or so. But now it applies to a 10 megs and 110 megs. Now, we've done quite a lot of programs about this in the past, especially last summertime when it was just beginning to come in. And indeed, if you missed any of those, you can look back on our YouTube collection of programs and see when we did a whole special program on ICNUT. But the main details, if you're not sure and wondering what I'm talking about, this does apply to you if you transmit on basically anything above 10 megs now. So have a look at this website, if I can ask Tammy to show this caption. This is rsgb.org/EMF. You don't have to be a member of the RSGB. This is a service they're providing for all amateurs. Lots and lots of information on there, which does apply to you if you transmit now for more than 10 megs, over 10 megs. It doesn't matter about the power. It's a bit of a fallacy, I think, out there that if you say a foundation license holder, it won't apply to you. It does apply to everybody, and it actually depends on your antenna and, of course, the gain that you can get from some antenna and things as to how much this might affect you or not. Hopefully, it won't. So that's the website to have a look at there. There is an online calculator now, which basically means you don't have to load this into a spreadsheet as you used to have to do or anything like that. It's literally like an online website that you can enter the details of your antenna setup. And the RSGB are actually working on some other things for this particular band now. I'll say one other thing on their behalf. Of course, this is all being done by volunteers at the RSGB. And if you have done some work on an antenna that's not covered in their details, then please share it with them. All the contact details are again on that page there, on that link. But do share that information, because they're just, you imagine how many different antennas you can have and different systems, and they're just trying to put as much information as possible and collate it all and include on this online calculator. So 18th of May, it's from today. If you transmit over 10 megahertz, this does apply to you as a radio amateur. So have a good look at that. Thanks, by the way, to John G8VPE, who last week reminded me of that just before the AGM. So next I'm going to tell you about the AGM that we had last week. Hopefully many of you saw it online. Well, we know lots of you did. 60 odd people, I think, watched it online. If you missed the AGM last week and you are a NARC member, if you drop me an email, I'll be able to link you to a recording of this. This is not something that we've put online for general public, because it is a members only event, an annual general meeting. But if you're a member and you missed the meeting and you'd like to see it or part of it, then drop us an email and we will send you the link to the recording that's online. And also, we in the AGM, there was one thing we asked you to contribute to. I know we've asked you to vote and things on lots of things in the last few weeks. This is the final thing, really. We've asked to make, we suggested to make changes to our constitution, which allows for this very thing we're doing tonight. Online events, online meetings, and in particular, online voting. Although we've been doing this online because of the pandemic, our constitution as it is doesn't allow for this. It just talks about, in fact, it says specifically that to vote on anything at the AGM, you have to be there in person. And clearly, as last week showed, although we had 40 odd people there, we didn't have enough people. We didn't have a lot of members. You know, roughly 3/4 of the members actually weren't there. They were watching, and many of them were watching online. So this is to modernise the club, bring it and make it legitimate in the future, once the pandemic is over as well, to be able to do this sort of thing online, including voting. So hopefully most of you have no problems with it. I haven't had anybody yet say that there is, but if there is, you have until Saturday at midnight to have your say. What you need to do is to look at the newsletter or the website, go to the links on there, look at the proposed changes. If you're unhappy with any of them, then by all means write to me. That's what I've asked to do, but you also need to be constructive in your criticism, as it were, and suggest what we should be doing differently. But really, genuinely, this is really to legitimise what we have been doing, to allow the club to function over the last couple of years, and heaven forbid, if something like this happens again, a pandemic or whatever it is, bad weather or whatever, then we need to engage with you online. It does allow us to do that legitimately through the Constitution. This is the last time I'll be mentioning it, so if you have any concerns, please look at the website, look at the documents, and write to me before Saturday evening. Now, one other thing we mentioned last week at the AGM, regretfully, we have not had really sufficient numbers of people to allow us to safely and properly set up our NFD station. Now, I have to say, although this is disappointing, we're not altogether surprised. It's why this year we haven't organised, for example, the usual radioactive event, which we normally do at Great Ellingham. And we were worried that we would have enough people to do this safely and fully to set up the station because of the Jubilee weekend, which is only a few weeks away and is a 4-day Jubilee weekend, of which 3 of the days would be taken up by doing this. So we're not surprised. We know people have family commitments and other things they want to do with their partners and the rest of their families and friends. So that, just to reiterate then, National Field Day for us, for Norfolk Amateur Radio Club this year, is cancelled or postponed from us, but of course we hope to be back again next year with NFD and also radioactive. And finally, what we are about to reveal for you is this. It's our summer programme. So this is just one of 2 slides, and you can see that every date, including what's happening next Wednesday and everything else, we have now finished planning, thanks to Roger and between Tammy and I as well. These are the events. It tells you when we're going to be doing NARC Live Online like this, and when we'll be meeting at the school, and it takes us right through to August. Can we have a quick look at the next slide as well, Tammy, please? Thank you. So that's all of those. Now, I know you're not going to quickly write all these down, but of course we will be including this on our newsletter and on our website, and we're going to try and build a special part of our website so that any time you can have a quick look on there and instantly see whether we're meeting on a Wednesday night online or whether we're meeting at the school and what's on. But there's lots of, hopefully you agree, lots of lovely talks coming up, lots of great meetings and social things at the school, as well as those special events that you see on the bottom of the slide there. We've got the Barford Radio Alley and the Radio by the Seaside and Weeting Steam Festival. And it's probably the first time that the club has published the whole of the summer right through to September. But it does allow you to plan around those things. If there's particular things you want to do, then of course you'll be able to, hopefully with lots of notice like this, you'll be able to plan around them. Finally, I'd just like to tell you about a little bit more details about the GB3NB problems. If you listen to the Sunday news, the GB2RS news on GB3NB, right through to the end, you'll know there's a net after that, which this Sunday finished just after 8 o'clock. But after that, the NB repeater was continuously transmitting a carrier. And several of you online, we contacted a few. I happened to be at Kevin M0 UJD's house. We were going on our way home from a parents, and we heard this. And unexpectedly, this carrier just carried on and on and on. Now, we were quite concerned. We didn't think it was anybody trying to just block the frequency because it was going on for such a long time and it was just a blank carrier. But we were concerned about what it was. Anyway, it happened. It went on all overnight as well. And so the next day, Monday, we had to try and find out where it was. Now, several of you I know helped with this, and I want to thank you all, including, for example, Phil G4LPP, who's got a nice beam on 2 meters and told us that it was coming from sort of generally the Lowestoft, sort of South Norfolk direction. Basically, to cut a long story short, there were 2 people in particular at the Lowestoft Club area who spent most of a Monday looking, using direction finding equipment and using some radios and things to try and locate exactly where all this transmission was coming from that was blocking MB it was two things. Obviously, we were concerned for the repeater, but we were also concerned about what had happened, and we thought about someone's transmitter maybe accidentally transmitting would cause damage to the transmitter or something maybe even worse. James, I want to give a call out, a shout out now, as well as for all of you who got involved in some way to help us, to James M0JGX and Mervyn G4TAD, because both of those people spent most of Monday looking around Lowestoft to try and track this down, because it was quite a strong signal for them. And then Kevin M0UJD and I, late on Monday, went there to help them. We took some direction finding equipment for ourselves, sort of fox hunting equipment as well, and eventually it was located, and it was actually located not to an amateur, but it was to a shortwave listener, and someone who's bought a radio some years ago to listen to 2 meters. He enjoys listening to the GB2RS news, the RSGB news, and also the Monday Night Net and several other conversations. And what he had done was he stores his radio. It is a transceiver, but he is just a shortwave listener. But like most people, that's the easiest and cheapest way probably to buy a 2 meter receiver. And he stored it in a bureau in his lounge. And what had happened is, at the end of the net, he forgot to switch the transceiver off, shut the bureau door, and you can guess he touched the microphone PTT button. And from about 8 o'clock on Sunday night through till when we found him and located him on 6:30 on Monday night, his transmitter was transmitting all that time, we think at 25 watts. I can tell you that when we got there and when we eventually found this person, he was very concerned, obviously, and we were very worried. And when we found the transmitter and the transceiver, that was very, very, very hot, and the power supply. And of course, in a bureau, what do you store in bureau but bits of paper and letters and things? So it could have been very nasty. So we're pleased that nobody was hurt. That was also a concern of ours at the back of our mind. But I'm also pleased that there was no damage done. And unbelievably as well, his transmitter was okay after getting on for 24 hours. So all's well that ends well. And the reason I'm just covering that now, apart from for those of you who are curious to actually what happened, is just to highlight that really. If you do store your radio in a cupboard or anything like that, just be really sure that there's no way that sort of thing can happen. And one, of course, great bit of advice, if your radio has a timeout timer, set that up so that this couldn't possibly happen. Because very seriously, this could have been very nasty. It could have started a fire, and we could be talking about something very different tonight. Just to help this person, I've ordered a book, the Foundation License book, and to see if he maybe be interested in maybe taking up the hobby, because he's clearly interested in all the things that he listens to. So I've ordered that book from the RSGB, and as soon as it comes, I'm going to pop it together with a letter to this person's home, and hopefully we can get him interested and maybe get him through his foundation. So you might eventually even hear him on air to tell the tale. But thanks again to everybody who got involved, and particularly to James and Mervyn, and for Kevin, who came with me on Monday, for giving so much time to sort this out, and it was a happy ending in the end. Now, one quick, before we get on to the What on Earth, we've got an update, which we're calling a sort of an occasional feature we call Nest News. You'll know that when we featured our Spring View feature a few weeks ago, we saw James M0UKS and Lynn's set up there with all their cameras and things, and we've got a bit of an update. So if we could play this video, Tammy, I think
we can. This is Sid the squatter.
Is it?
Yep, Sid's now got 3 babies.
Oh, lovely.
Getting big, aren't they?
They are.
Lovely.
Brilliant.
It's Blue as well. Blue still has got 9 babies. 9 little blue tits.
That is going to be rather busy in there.
That is.
Wow.
When
wonderful.
we first saw them, they were absolutely tiny, and now it's just like they're all squished in.
And that's 7:30 this morning, looking at the clock on there.
Yeah.
So really up-to-date information. Thank you very much to Lynn and James for those pictures and keeping us up to date. That's the end of all my talking anyway. Tammy?
Yeah, I forgot I had a voice, actually.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
That's all right.
Little people, what have you got for us this week?
Well, I thought as we're going to hear maybe a little bit about motorbikes later, I thought we'd have a motorbike-themed Little People this week. So I thought that was pretty cool.
And they're riding on the
I hope we haven't seen that one before.
I don't think so.
Because I have seen it before. And I get worried now when I look at the Little Peoples to see, because I think, I've seen that before and I can't remember if we've used it because we've used so many now.
I don't remember seeing that before, Tammy, and you never showed it to me before the event either, did you? So we've done 100 and some odd of these now, so really good. Anyway, miniature-calendar.com is where you can find out details and see lots of other pictures of these from this wonderful website. So, now we're not meeting next week online, we're meeting at the school, but the week after we'll be meeting, so don't forget to keep in touch with all of your news and everything. We would love to hear from you. We've got a few things we've held over because we don't want to keep our guests waiting tonight for reasons that will become obvious soon as well. But radio@dcpmicro.com. Anything you'd like us to share with the show. It doesn't have to be about radio. This is all about Norfolk Amateur Radio Club and our members and our friends keeping us together and keeping us informed. So let's go to our competition, which we call What on Earth is This? So what on earth is this? Now, I think this might be one of those things, if you know, you know. But I've never seen anything like it before. Did you, Tammy? Just from the pictures?
No, I didn't guess what it was, no.
So we've had a few people. I'm just having a look online now to see if anybody had got...
I don't think we have had any online. No, we haven't. No.
Okay. No, all right. So let's have a look at what we've got. Paul G3VPT says, is it a bottle opener of some sort?
Nev M0NFY, looks like a very posh mobile phone holder. Yeah, it could be, couldn't it? One way you would stand the phone to watch mobile content.
See that, definitely. Ben 2E0OMR says, I'll hazard a guess. It's a motorcycle stand for flash bikers, he says in brackets.
Shirley G0ZAA, I think it looks like some sort of pocket knife, as it has a picture. In the picture, it's half open, so putting the blades together will make the whole blade and the case in the handle. Just my musings.
Okay, and finally, the last entry we had was from Richard G0VCW. Says, I think it may be a cycle stand. So, have we just make absolutely sure that we haven't got anybody who's guessed online? Just want to have
No,
a
I
look
don't
at
think
those.
we
I
have.
don't think we have.
No, I haven't seen any.
Okay, so let's have reveal now. What on earth this was?
I can reveal it. It was a bike stand.
I think that's brilliant.
It's pretty wicked,
I've
isn't it?
never seen anything like that before. Have you? You said, what did you say, Tam?
Well, I think I may have seen something a bit like that, but I didn't guess what it was.
No. Well, anyway, Tom GXQD, that was a great one, I think, to leave us with, and people had a couple of weeks to work out that. So well done to those of you who thought it was a bike stand, especially if you sort of worked it out. That's really good deduction.
It's right if you pedal fit in it, though, isn't it?
Yes, quite. Really, really. And it does look like a useful thing as well, instead of one of those stand things that you have on. So well done to all of you who entered. Thank you very much indeed. Let's now go to find out what the new competition picture is. What on earth is this? I'm not going to give any clues. You've got 2 weeks for this one. So have a think now. Let us know as soon as you know, though, otherwise you may forget to enter. Send it to radio@dcpmicro.com. The very latest we can receive your answer is a week on, or 2 weeks today. 2 weeks Wednesday. But we hope to hear from a lot of you what you think that is. And of course we'll be putting that on a newsletter and on our website as well. So finally then, just to let you know what's happening in the club this week, of course on Sunday the GB2RS News as usual on GB3NB at 7 o'clock. On Monday it's the Monday Night Net at 7:30. On GB3NB as well, and at 8:30 the 80 metre CW net on 3.543 megahertz. And then next Wednesday, the 25th of May, as I mentioned earlier, we're meeting at the CNS school again, so there'll be no NARC live, but it's a social informal plus a discussion on the new exam syllabus for trainers. So if you're one of our training team, we haven't done anything, let's face it, for a couple of years now, the training team, or if you'd like to be part of our training team, this isn't aimed at students now, this is just for trainers. We're going to have a sort of an informal meeting there as well to discuss where we go now, because the syllabus has changed and it's about to change again a little bit in September as well to incorporate ICNUP. So we just like a feeling of how we should now support those both who've done maybe their foundation online and they want to go the next further steps, and also how we support the new syllabus and of course all the online learning and the online exams indeed now. So if you're part of those, I hope to see you next week. That part of the meeting, by the way, will be just after 7:30 after notices. We look forward to seeing lots of you at the school next week. And finally, to remind you, we have this wonderful magical card that we send out most weeks, at least one of them. A NARC card we're happy to send to anybody at all who'd be cheered by that. Just send us their details, their name and address. We'll add your name to ours and send it. Just radio@dcpmicro.com to let us know. Was it me or was this chair creaky?
Do you know, I just think you need a new chair because
yeah, or maybe I shouldn't move.
It's really squeaky
weird,
tonight. Really squeaky.
You sound like you have a new chair on the budget.
Yeah, I feel like there's one over there.
Oh, try it. All right. Anyway, let's get on to our main event because our guest is not in this country. He's in the States, and you may have read that. But not just in the States. He's on the move. And this is the first for us because, as you probably know, for most of our guests, we do try and do a technical rehearsal with all of them before they come on. And when I asked Patrick where he was going to be, he said, oh, we're not quite sure on Wednesday and we're not quite sure for the rehearsal. And that's because he's on his travels. But I think before saying too much more, I think we should meet the man we're talking about. It's Patrick, KJ7ZSU. Hello, Patrick.
Hey, everybody.
Good to see you. So do tell us a little bit, before we talk about what we're going to be talking about tonight, the Geochron then, just tell us a little bit about this journey. So your base is in Portland?
We have a small machine shop outside Portland, Oregon, and where we also do the Geochron Digital.
Okay, we haven't got great internet, I have to tell you, unfortunately, at the moment, Patrick. So I'm hoping that's going to stay with us. All right, but anyway, but the key thing for us, I think, to know though, is that you started there, but where are you right now?
I'm in Louisville, Kentucky.
And that's quite a way, isn't it? How many? A few hundred, about 4 states, I think, away. You said.
Well, I have done 4 states in the last 4 days. I'm on a journey to visit a Geochron owner in every state in the United States on a motorcycle.
That's the key bit as well, isn't it? So, and you're hoping to end up in Dayton. And when I heard all this a few days ago, I sort of blew my mind. I thought, well, can we do this? But you were so keen to continue with the commitment that you made to us to do this talk. So I have to say, we're really impressed. We just put USA as the location because we really didn't know where you'd be tonight until you gave it. And we should also give a shout out for the customer's house that you are in, I believe, Dr. Hine, I believe.
Yes, Dr. Hine. I haven't met him yet, actually. His wife let me in the door early so I could take advantage of the Wi-Fi internet so we could do this call. He should be home in several hours, and there is a dinner party tonight, and I'm a little celebrity in Louisville, Kentucky tonight because I'm here. Geochron people are just so exceptional.
Well, it seems that way, and we're really looking forward to seeing it. So let's see and hear about the product, and I think you're going to let us know about some of the places you've been to as well, and maybe your story as well of how you got involved with it. So I'll hand over to you now, Patrick. I'll only come in if our internet fails us in some way. If I think you're sharing your screens already, so we're going to go hand to you. And as always, to you at home watching this now, of course, if you've got any questions or comments, maybe you've had a Geochron yourself or you've thought about getting one, as we'll find there's several different models now, then do pop them onto BATC or to Facebook and we'll relay those to Patrick at the end. But right now, I'm going to hand straight over to you, Patrick. Let's hope the internet stays up. And thank you very much for all the efforts that you've made to talk to us.
You bet. All right, so Geochron was built. There was a famous inventor who created a Geochron in 1964. The Geochron is a mechanical clock that he built. When originally it was his wife was in Luxembourg and he was in San Francisco, California. His wife called home. She was completely unaware of that it was the middle of the night in California, and he thought there must be a better way to be able to tell time in all 24 time zones simultaneously. Now today you can go to a browser and get that information, but back in 1964 you had to have a machine, and he invented the machine to do that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about machine, and then we'll get into the digital that I invented about 3 years ago. But before I do that, a little bit more about my travels. So back in November, I got on a motorcycle. I love motorcycling. Here's my BMW 1200 RT. And I hopped on and I did the first leg of my trip on a quest to visit a Geochron owner in all states of the United States on a motorcycle. And so since then, on this motorcycle and wearing that suit, which I have next to me here in this lovely room that I'm staying in tonight, I have done 20 states since November. And so this is a little thing I put on the front of my motorcycle to demonstrate how far I've gotten. It may be another year before that motorcycle comes home. I'm on leg number 3. What I do is I get to a major airport, I stow the bike someplace, maybe in a storage unit, and then I fly home. I work for a couple months, come back later, and line up bits to people who have Geochrons. So, for example, here's Georgia. So this guy, and this is just on Saturday that I met up with Tim. And Tim is a huge weather nerd. He's a certified weather observer, and he's got thousands and thousands of dollars of equipment in his backyard. And he was extremely excited to share with me everything that he was doing as a volunteer for NOAA. He's also a civil engineer. And then I had Steve. And so Steve was actually a homestay. They put me up for the night, which is very kind of them. They took me out for some Cajun. This is in South Carolina. And then we got on the line with his buddies at 8:30 a.m. EST to talk to them. And he's like, and I got Patrick here from Geochron. And there were like a dozen people on the line. And there was some talking. I really, really love these experiences. They're just delightful. And then I was talking to Bill Williams. Bill Williams is a corporate attorney for a coal company in North Carolina, and I stayed at his house as well. And he has it is like Tony Stark's basement. He has all these interests. He spends so much time. He spends some time developing, doing legal work. He has a Geochron, kind of the polymathic personality that is typical for a Geochron owner. And then this is Tennessee. So I was in Tennessee yesterday, and I was visiting Stephen. Stephen, this is his house, and then his daughter-in-law and his brother also live there. And they just, whenever I arrive at these places, I've never met them before, but they are super happy that I'm there, and I want to learn about how they're using a Geochron. And mostly, I just like people, and I'm on my quest to visit 50 customers. So this is a really deeply meaningful. Now on this trip, I'll wind up eventually in Dayton to do Hamvention in 2 days. Right now, I am sitting in Louisville, Kentucky. This is the house that I pulled into 45 minutes ago. I said, I really have to have an internet connection. Could you please let me come early? And they said, oh, sure, no problem. And this is the picture I took as I parked in the backyard. And so this is their lovely house, and I'm sitting in a bedroom that is just off the porch, talking to you now on my adventures. So that's just
fantastic, Patrick. That's a real
4
story.
or 5 days.
Yeah, and you did, I think, actually answer. We've had just one question pop up, and I'm not going to interrupt the rest of your talk, but it was relevant.
You to ask those questions.
Okay, but one of them, I mean, Steve G3VA says, what bike are you riding, Patrick? And you said it was a BMW something or other, didn't you?
Yeah, let's back up to that. So, okay, if you're a motorcycle guy, I'll spend 30 seconds on this. This is a 2015 BMW 1200 RT Police. I only ride police bikes. You can see the takedown lights in the front. There's lights in the back behind my cases there, little antennas coming up. And I'm not a police officer, but I ride police bikes. And that's because traffic is very, very kind to me when I'm wearing a white helmet on a police bike. They respect me, and they see me, and they leave me alone.
Oh, I love it. Well, that's another trade secret that we've learned, isn't it? Anyway, as I said, Patrick, well, I'm going to leave you to your presentation now, but to remind everybody at home, if you've got any questions about the Geochron or Patrick or what he's doing and all those sort of things, then please pop them onto Facebook and BATC. But now back to you, Patrick, for the presentation.
All right. And if there are more questions, you just go ahead and interrupt me, because I'm used to being interrupted a lot.
All right.
All right. So back to the mechanical Geochron you might be familiar with, shows the gray line in real time in the mechanical version. And you can see that's a map that has been backlit by these LED lights. They have these blue shades, and the two arrows, we call them arrows, that are in the middle, they flex and warp according to a fantastic design that we are not smart enough to do, but the dude in 1964, James Kilburg, did to create the Geochron mechanical clock. There's also lots of machinery that makes that happen, and we have a shop outside Portland, Oregon, where we About 3/4 of our work is restoring clocks, of which there are some 30,000 of these clocks that are out there.
Wow.
And we build about one new one per week. And we've updated the design a little bit. If you're familiar with Geochron, it used to be AC synchrotron motors. Now we've moved over to stepper motors because they work a little bit better. But still, we're the only shop in the world that will do a full restoration on a Geochron. For people who own Geochrons in the UK, there is a repair shop, Purple Zebra. You can find it at geochron.uk. Paul, who does the repairs, has been with Geochron for 30 years, and he can get almost any Geochron in working order. If you want a full restoration, you have to send it to me in the United States, though. The Geochron has been featured in lots of different movies, right? We have 3 Days of the Condor. Usually I hear about Hunt for Red October. And anytime there was a CIA boardroom, there was probably a mechanical Geochron in the background. And so it became famous that way. Here's a picture of James Earl Jones, one of my favorite actors, with the Geochron in the background on the set of the Hunt for Red October. So I have lots of pictures of Geochron taken with notable people. You can see here on the left, my left, is the inventor. That's James Kilberg with his two sons. And on the right, there's President Ronald Reagan posing with his Geochron. There's Gerald Ford with his Geochron. There's President Obama in front of a Geochron at the FEMA headquarters. And there's President Biden with a Geochron behind the head lady, the blonde lady there. So in the beginning, Geochron was, when Gorbachev came over to the United States, Ronald Reagan gave him a Geochron as an example of an American engineering. It was a diplomatic gift. And so I think that's our best kind of like claim to fame. Like we were an American diplomatic gift once. That's awesome.
Can I just ask you quickly, sorry, Patrick, that picture
Sure.
back there with President or Biden, is that a mechanical one there or the new electronic one?
All the shown you with presidents are all mechanical.
Wow.
Yeah. The digital, which I'll get to in a moment, is only 3 years old, so it doesn't have traction at the highest levels of government.
That's fantastic, though. It says something about the durability of it. Anyway, back to you.
Yeah. It's a very photogenic piece. Pretty much, if you're over 50 years old, you're like, this is the coolest thing ever. I love the machine aspect. So it makes sense that it would be featured in these sorts of installations. We work on the Geochron mechanical in a little building that outside Portland, Oregon, in a town called Estacada. There's a picture of the building, and in the back there is the Geochron shop. There's one administrator and 2 techs, and every day UPS or FedEx delivers Geochrons for the door. They slide them in, and then a couple weeks later, months later, like right now, we have some 30 to 40 Geochrons in queue to be. We ship them back out.
Okay, Patrick, we just lost the internet from you again. I don't know if you can hear me, but we've got your picture still, thankfully. So I'm just filling in now so that people at home don't check their internet and things. I'm praying this is going to come back. So we've got still, if you just joined us, we're listening to Patrick KJ7ZSU from Geochron and telling us the story about the company. But at the moment, we have no internet connection, and I think it's all from him. Back. You're back, Patrick, just about.
Check 1. All right, check 1, 2.
Yeah.
I'll back up and explain this slide. So we have in the back, we restored some 300 per year. We can work on about 7 per week, 2 techs and 1 admin, and then and 2 developers on we work remotely, go to once a week to make sure. Okay, you still with me, David?
It's not great, as you can probably see in the signal meter on the bottom left of your screen. We've got red, but we can just about hear that bit. We did lose you for best part of a minute, I guess. But don't worry, we'll persevere.
Okay. All right. So I'm advancing the slide here just a moment. So, do you have my audio?
I do. Yes.
Okay, great. So the Geochron comes together and to form the gray line in real time with a topic or a geopolitical. and creating something that's beautiful. But they are expensive because these are all custom parts that go into the clock. Sheet metal and shipping is crazy expensive right now, and so right now a regular mechanical geochron is $2,000 to $4,000. This knocks most people out. And here's now that you can see on your screen a picture of one of our limited edition geochrons. But these wind up in very notable locations. We have a contest to see what is the most beautiful. And here's the guy who won last year. He is a patent of Texas with handmade telescopes that he works on, and he mounted the geochron there. And I think that's the picture I think I've ever seen. I roll these out like they're my children. Like, check out this picture.
Well, in a sense,
now
they
let's talk
are
for a
your
little
children,
bit.
I guess, aren't they?
Yeah, I put just as much work in this company as I have my own children. That's for sure. I think my kids will probably say that somewhat ruefully, but this is what I have.
Yeah.
All right. So there's that same picture now, but that attorney, he added a digital geochron, which you can see on the right side of the screen. So the digital geochron is a 4K. You provide the screen, and we provide the little computer that looks like this. This is a quad-core Intel that's rendering in 4K. With the Wi-Fi, we're feeding it kinds of different new live layers, which I'll get into in just a moment. But you provide the screen as big as you want. And 4K TVs, at least here in the United States, are really inexpensive these days compared with everything else. Here's an example of this in Hungary. Someone sent me a picture of a geochron in Hungary. I really love it. It's got that Eastern Soviet type, what I think of as Eastern European architecture, and I think it looks really good. On that screen, you can see that's a topographical view with some airline flights and big curve of the ISS coming through. I'm going to drill down into what you see on a geo. So in this picture, I'm looking at location. I'm seeing the International Space Station arc over, as you can see that there. In the blue, you see blue clouds. That's actually precipitating at the time of that picture. This is all in 4K that looks weird. I'm going to move on here on my slide and the screen. I'll jump in just a minute. There it goes. You can also track live airline flights by category or by continent. This is Airlines at the time, which was 2 p.m. time. I don't remember what day it was, but time if these move across, you're familiar with their patterns. Like, for example, I mentioned FedEx. Oh, FedEx they're all heading out of Atlanta right now to go get packages. But any airline in the world is trackable on a Geochron 4K. One of my favorites too is you can also see live earthquakes within 10 minutes of when they happen. This is just free. Well, so provided that you have an internet connection, the Geochron has to have a Wi-Fi or Ethernet connected to it, so we can send it information from our servers. Here I have the earthquake layer, and it looks like there was a pretty big one off the north coast of New Zealand. In the United States, the reporting is very good for earthquakes, which is why you see a lot of tiny ones that are off the West Coast and also up into Alaska. Now, the small ones that are in Alaska, those are earthquakes, but not caused by the seismic plates, which you see illustrated in the orange dots that are on the screen, part of the Pacific Rim. So in Alaska, those are volcanic earthquakes. But there's something even more unusual going on the screen. Look down by Texas. You see one that says 3.4 on the screen. That's a seismic earthquake. That is a volcanic earthquake. So, David, I'm just curious if you caused an earthquake that is actually in Oklahoma.
I've only got a bit of that, Patrick, I'm afraid. We're getting about 80%, I guess, of what you said. Don't worry, it's okay. But okay. I didn't quite get that question. Something about an earthquake somewhere. So you were going to ask me, say again, can you?
If you look down at the earthquake that is above Dallas, Texas. This
Okay.
374 on the screen. That's not an earthquake, and that is not a volcanic earthquake. None of that exists in that area of the country. What's causing earthquakes in the Midwestern United States? You know?
No, I don't know. Do you know, Tony?
Yeah. That's
Is
caused
it
by
fracking?
fracking for
Oh, yeah,
natural
fracking. Yeah.
for gas and for oil, and it's creating earthquakes in the West United States all the time.
Wow, that's a bit
And
worrying.
who knew, huh? Who knew? All right, moving on. We also track pollution. So you can see clouds of pollution, whether it's by city or carbon monoxide. You see up in the right-hand little map so that you can view other parts that you're on and still keep track on where all that pollution is happening, which is mostly in Southeast Asia. It's where all the people are. So it gets created in Southeast Asia and then blows across the ocean, across Hawaii, and in America. And if you have a geochron, you would know. You'd be like, yep, that's where that's all coming. It really shapes the conversation when you have a full view of the world. And I know that most of all have an excellent view of the world because they're constantly reaching out to it with their equipment and with their technological skills. In this, hopefully it is good enough, but in working in fast time, there's a movie that's, but I don't think that it's coming up on the screen very well. If you over see the satellites moving across the Earth, you could see all sorts of different things that are happening at Earth time. There's a fast time lapse of that. I'm going to move on to another one here. Just a moment. There we go. And in this one, you should be able to see it's moving on my screen, but you should see the satellite moving up and down on a pole. And they are often where like little flocks because they're seeing them they're released in spores. Like, as you know, satellite technology is fantastic these days. They'll release 40 or so at a time. So like I mentioned, people are always sending me pictures. Just a moment. All right,
Patrick,
coming back
I don't
to
know.
you now.
I don't know if you don't mind me just saying, because we are getting probably say only 70% or so what you say, because your picture of you takes so much bandwidth, but not the pictures you're sending us. I wonder, is it possible for you to easily, quickly switch your camera off, just using audio at the moment? Could you try that? I think that might make the most of the small amount of internet that you've got.
Okay. All right.
If you could,
no problem.
That's right. Yeah. Now I think we'll carry, and then we'll come back to you at the end with your video. But that's
okay.
Let's see how we get on with that.
I have a voice made for radio.
Do you know what? I'll share this with you as well. Years ago, I used to work in radio, and I can tell. The managing editor told me once as I was leaving his office, "You've got the perfect body for radio," and I went smiling away. And it was only when I was just out of the door that I realised that wasn't really a compliment. But anyway,
yeah.
But we've got your audio much better now. That was a good test of it. So,
okay. Good suggestion. Again, we find these installed all over the world now. These by the thousands. Geochron Mechanic Limited, and it's just want to keep working on it, keep it alive. But picture of the Geochron digital, and also this one just off Cape Canaveral. That's in Florida, and of course, people send me these pictures which is how often I figure out who I want to visit. Started excited for me to show up at their house. Have you
gone to the White House yet, then?
I have not been to the White House. I understand that there is a watch room in the basement of the White House, but I confirm that I would they did. And then of course different geochron stations are in lovely settings or super techie settings like this one. This guy is both an amateur radio guy. A weather. He was really excited. I mean, that is the most magnificent shack I've ever. And I love see it on the left. The Starship is laying on the counter there. It sounds. right, and another one. I'll get into some of the layers of the ham radio in just a minute. I'm just going to wait for the screen to change.
Yeah,
here's another lovely one. Look at that setup. All right, and here coming up is my own setup when I'm working out of my office. I work off 3 screens and have Geochron on the right. So that's where I spend most of my time. I don't know why that one is there. Moving on. Sometimes they arrive in educational institutions. And my best piece of memorabilia is Scott Kelly has a Geochron that is in the background when he does his Zoom calls. Scott Kelly is a famous astronaut here in the United States. And I helped him out on technical support, and he was appreciative. And so he sent me a postcard, and attached to the postcard was a small pin. And he said, Patrick, this traveled with me for a year on the International Space Station. Thanks so much for your help. And I've got that in my office. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So a quick story about how Geochron gets around. Sometimes we have tremendous wildfires in the Pacific Northwest and on the West Coast because it can get so dry. And just about that time, we had a wildfire in our town. Here's the front of my house. The UPS dropped off a bunch of computers, which we then set up as Geochrons and kit and load and do all the finished prep on them. And they just dropped it off as the whole neighborhood was under a mandatory evacuation for the fire. And there were reports of looting that were going on outside of town because there was not enough sheriffs to cover the bad actors who were out there looking for abandoned houses. So my wife and my daughter were getting ready to go up to Seattle with the in-laws. And I said, I'm not leaving a safe place for this because that's $250,000 worth of that we have to process. I can't afford to take that hit if somebody says that. So we loaded it all into the base, into the front room as we were going to. And then I started saying, hey, I need to move this because I can't stay in this house because we're under evacuation orders. So so a friend of mine said, oh, sure, bring it down to my warehouse, which was in the center of town. I loaded it up in my truck and we took it down, and he graciously unloaded it and stored it for about a week until I could come back and retrieve it, and there it was put out. But that fire did within a mile of mechanical shop. So Geochron is really small. This is us. We've got 2 developers, and me, and then 2 techs, and Amala, who's there in the middle, is our admin. Moving on to Geochron, more Geochron stuff. Geochron also shows a lot of weather things. We've got so is where it's precipitation in 4K. It's like over above Columbia. That's where it's raining in equal proportions. You also see the NOAA that are providing. You also see NOAA satellites that are providing to us. Those are also shown, like the NOAA in time zone T, and that precipitation. The airlines here in coming up, UPS and Hawaii, all these different airlines can be shown, as well as the total commercial flights that are in the air at any given time. All right. So they were asked for moon phase. We're going to skip ahead here. Moon phase is shown on the Geochron along with the gray line. I mentioned the earthquakes already. And people take some unusual hybrids. This is a Geochron, a company called BRG, like government clocks with huge displays that you might see in movies. So this is a hybrid that they sell, which combines the Geochron and their big LED displays. Now, for what you might be thinking of what's with the ham radio layers? Well, yes, ham radio guys use this quite a bit, and that's why I'm here to talk about this. So there's some ham shacks that people sent me pictures of. In this picture, what you're seeing is live DXing and the call signs of a sample of ham radio transmissions that are happening on Earth in real time. And when I say real time, I say maybe within 5 minutes of when those transmissions are actually done. So you can see that Europe is very busy at this time of day as it's communicating with Japan and also with Australia. At the same time, on the left, you should recognize that common indicator of what bands are open along with solar information. And so this is an example of what comes with the ham radio options in Geochron Atlas. I'm going to move ahead here. This is going back into a video. Maybe the was a little. Oh, I see that it is. You see the ham radio satellites, whether they're in linear configuration, spinning around, along with the airline jumping from place to place as we move in fast motion to see the world on the Geochron in 4K. So if you were living with it, you'd be like, oh yeah, I recognize all those patterns. Also with the ham radio bundle is maximum usable frequency. Here's an example of what that looks like. The green dots and the yellow dots are the maximum usable frequency as determined by ionospheric radars in that location. So like you see one up at in Alaska, or in what looks like around Lake City, Utah, or maybe there's one off the very top of England there that's showing 21. So super, and they'll crunch it down to a topographical lake, see as green lines are moving across the screen to let you know what the maximum usable frequency is for transmission off the ionosphere within 1,000 mile transmission distance. Also shown on this is the DX about before, and a lot of information moving between transmissions moving in Europe and North America, in Europe and South America. If you Geochron, of course, I know finding this on a browser, any number of services, but only Geochron is going to combine that into glittering 4K. To do that, we start with a ham radio, which I'll wait here for it to come up so you can see your time zones. You can see your ITU and ITU and zones and prefixes. And then on top of that, we're going to build more stuff. I mentioned the DX displaying, but also do your ADIF. If you're a subscriber to QRZ and upload your logs to QRZ, those automatically show on the Geochron. And looking forward to doing more logs in the future, work with more software platforms and integrate those into Geochron. It's just a super great way to be able to people and say, oh, what do you do hanging in your ham shack? Saying, this is what I've got. People, whoa, they won't see your transceiver. They won't see your keys. They will look at the Geochron and say, what's that? And then that is a great way to explain what's going on in your world and what you do as a amateur. Here's an example of a very busy ADIF log. As I mentioned, or their subscribers through the ham radio Geochron. Okay, just a moment. Just a moment. Stand by.
Okay, we've got it now,
Moving
Patrick.
On. Gotcha. There's a yeah. Moving on. Here is a very radio bundle screen showing the beacons, the reverse beacon locations, and also the DX transmissions. And you notice that the lines, the great circle routes of the transmissions are showing in different colors. That's because there's a color code at the map showing what bands are real time. But you can also select for them. And here's an example of what it looks like within the ham radio op. So there's lots of different ways to filter it. And then also the AMSAT satellites, FM or linear, and you can print so that you know if it's how close you are, parent, and the spotlight and footprint of the satellite. All right, moving forward, Maidenhead grids, as well, shown here. You're contesting. It's not on the Geochron. People said, hey, can you include two? Yes, we can. And of course, whenever I get a picture from a ham shack, they all call sign prominently displayed somewhere. I think he has this call before, and so I just, because he's a guy, I call sign here. That even, and whatever color you want, Geochron Digital. Okay, like I mentioned, this coming up. This should look familiar to you. It's nice to have this easy that's in the same using. And I don't know what the solar system is useful for. I'm not a really, I'm an amateur radio guy. But if you want to, I think it's a really great display. So we decided to include solar terrestrial data and the planets in the Geocron, along with, everyone understands, the our forecast in this too, in the upper right hand corner. Talk through a little bit about the MUF layer. The MUF layer is not just in topography, but it can be shown as a heat map too. But it can kind of take over the screen when you use big colors like that. And so all the layers that are shown in Geochron can be adjusted up just what you want to see as far as what's going on in the world in real time. And that world is a busy place. It can get entirely busy. So the picture that's coming shows all the details that you can into. I'm looking at the solar terrestrial data on the left. I'm looking at call signs. I'm at this big mess of an NUF that's to tell you what's going on in the Iona, July 8th, 2020 at 5:40 TC. When I took that picture, you see that UTC is listed along with your local time zone on the lower corner. And yeah, and what day it is. So anyway, but like I said, and I share, it's just sort of like a picture show as I talk about what people are using geochrons for. Here's an example of one of our winners years ago of the most shack ever. When you win, you get a free atlas because I love the features. This one, I believe, coming up is in Germany. Mm-hmm. And Europe, those European pictures, the ones we get from Europe, they tend to be right. In North America, we got all kinds of space, and so we have big houses. So, but I can always tell what come from Europe. I think we already saw these. Here is one of my favorites. This is also from Germany coming up. Not yet, but there it is. Right. So this is a wall of technology with Geochron in the middle of it. Look at that.
Wow.
That's amazing. I really like the hanging link along with the planets that are hanging off that wheel. I think that's a nice touch.
All that you're missing out of that is the flight controls, isn't it? You know, it looks like...
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
It looks so good. It looks so good. Anyway, so that is the crash course on Geochron as it exists today. And I'm going to re-enable my picture here. Just a moment. And you can come back to me.
Okay, lovely.
All right.
Well, what a... that was just amazing, really, basically. And by the way, you'll notice that in your honor, we have put down... You've changed slightly your caption. And we've put that you're mobile USA because we think that's more appropriate.
This is KJ7ZSU motorcycle mobile.
Well, I mean, as far as I know, you might have already moved to the next state in the time of that anyway. But we've got most of it, Patrick. There's a few words we're missing, but as they say also, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And I think that's definitely the case here. You know, I'm going to start by saying that I'm guilty here because I wrote the words for the newsletter of this. And I thought, I've seen pictures of the Geochron over the years. And I didn't read all of the blurb on it. And I just thought, well, it's really just a really nice clock that tells you, what the time is in different parts of the world and whether it's dark or light. And that's honest. And I suspect that is the case for lots of people who would never have imagined that you could do so much, especially with this new digital one, of course, because although it hasn't got maybe the elegance of the electromechanical engineering and the ingenuity that went into that from 1964, I think you said, obviously it seems that you can do an awful lot more with the digital one.
That is definitely true. When I talk to people about it, if you were standing at Toy Story, one side and Buzz Lightyear on the other side. So Geochron Mechanical is definitely Woody and Geochron Digital is Buzz Lightyear. And there's something to like about both of them. I love my children equally. And Buzz Lightyear is really the one that's growing up and is going to become a really super because we're adding new layers and stuff.
Yeah, because again, just being completely frank with you, and I'm sure I won't be the only one, when I saw that you'd done a digital version, I thought, well, yeah, but it's probably not going to do much more than you could do on your computer. But You know, you would never leave a computer to sign just to do all that, and you would never get all that information up.
Yes, absolutely. So when I first bought the company, I just loved the, but then it became clear needed to be I develop a digital version. If you were, because everybody came up to me and asked me, "Oh, is it digital? No, it's mechanical. Don't you love it?" Yeah, but they didn't. But very few people could love it for $2,000 to $4,000. Right? And so now with the digital, because it's we can add so much more detail. And in the future, and I'm thinking within the next 12 months, we will have zooming ready to go. So we can zoom in on Europe or zoom in on North America. And this unlocks a bunch of different, so much more data that really want to see. They want to see greater enhanced weather. They want to see live events. If you play strategy games like Civilization, I see a world Geochron in real time. I want to see smoldering ruins. I want to see radioactive alerts. I want to see tsunamis that happen in the Geochron, which reaches beyond the ham radio. But I think taking our phones right here and just looking at you can also absorb this through a map. And I think the Geochron is a perfect medium to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think one of the things when you see a lovely thing in life, after getting over this is fantastic. And I've already got a comment here. I must just give him a shout out. Phil G6AIO has said, "I want one now." That's his comment on here. So I think the key thing, though, once we realise we want one, it is how much it costs. Do you know how much the sort of ham radio version costs for the electronic one in this country, roughly?
Oh boy. Okay, so Paul does it's geochron.uk does is provider to the UK, and so his prices are rough as they are. So I don't have that on top of me, but I can tell you that in America, it's between $450 to $499, and that gives you the computer and the live data that I have been showing you today. You'll have to provide your own 4K screen.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Well, that's good because that means that you can do that affordable. And as you said, I think your 4K screens in the States are starting probably at a few $100s, and it's the same pretty much over here. So judging by that, and Tammy's just looking it up to try and get a price, I think, confirmed. Did you see $399, Tammy, earlier there? £399, I think. I think something like that. Anyway, roughly speaking, and allowing for shipping and things like that, we think about £400 for the digital box. So you can. One of the things I've got to ask you though is how you control it. So we've seen the nice, neat little big dongle that's got all the computer and everything in it. But how do you actually control it? How do you ask the screen to display certain things?
Okay, actually, my demonstration unit is in the driveway cycle, so I won't leave the room and leave this, but I'll just tell you, it's a remote control. It's a little remote control about this big, and it's got with up, down, left, right, menu, plus, minus, this kind of. So in the future, we're going to be doing a new remote control that will be through an app for sale right now, but it will be applied to all Geochrons that are out there in the Atlas series. So, because we are adding so much information that we are quickly growing beyond our small little remote control. Like 2 AA batteries, about this big. That's how you control the Geochron at the moment.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Phil, the person who says I want one, has already looked it up, so he's leaving that on the computer around for his other half, I think, to probably see for Christmas. He says it's £399, so that is how much it is in the UK.
Okay.
And I know I don't want to get you to commit to this now. When we did catch up for the rehearsal a few days ago, you did say that you're hoping maybe to make it to National Hamfest this year.
Yeah. So my connection is Paul, who I've mentioned before. He's been with Geochron for 30 years. He is not a ham guy, but I am a ham guy. And so I think that to really properly represent, probably need to show up to the Ham Radio Fest that's in the UK.
Well, not for me to run your business, but I think if you could put a big screen up, 40, 55-inch screen or something like that, and show all this sort of thing for real, I would have thought that would have paid your trip anyway. We'll know who it is because we'll see someone coming out the steps of a jumbo jet with a motorcycle just bumping down the down the steps. We'll know it's you, I think. Actually, just I don't want to miss this out. Somebody who asked a biker, one of our biker members, Steve G3VA, asked what bike it was, and he says, "Nice presentation, well put over. Take care on the Beamer," he says.
Yes, I am not one of those guys who 100 miles an hour. And so, like in an airbag, you might be interested to know.
Really? An airbag? I think we just lost a tiny bit of that voice there. I think you said it had got an airbag, is that right? Oh, your coat has got an airbag.
Check this out.
Oh, wow. I've never heard of that either. The things we're learning.
Yeah, so this is a CO2, and then this tethers to the bike. See here? When this tethers to the bike, if you have right from the bike, full jacket blows up like the Michelin. And why would you not have an airbag? I've never used it, and I will, but I think it's a great idea.
Absolutely. I've never heard of that either. Well, I'm afraid I'm a 4-wheel man, not a 2-mil man, but it's news to me anyway, for definitely.
Yes.
And by the way, one of our good friends and members, Andy M0NKR, has just sent a message here. I think he's probably trying to watch this because he's just he left the UK probably yesterday or maybe earlier today, and he's just landed in the States because he said good evening from the US of A or W/M0NKR. So he's made it over to you just as you're making it over to us, at least virtually anyway.
Yes, good.
I mean, it's fascinating to see all those other things that you can do with it. And by the way, I must just tell everybody, because we're not going to keep you much longer, because you're already, I know you're in someone's house there, and it's really good of them to allow us to do this. So if you've got any questions or comments or anything for Patrick, do get them in right now. I mean, the original one we were saying doesn't have that. I mean, you mentioned it was 1964, I think. So even LEDs weren't around then, I believe. They were probably not around until about the 70s or so. So I presume they were using the technology that was available at the time. So incandescent lamps and things like that behind the original early Geochrons.
Funny story about that. It was CFL for many years, and when I took the company, and I have been involved with Geochron for 7 years now. It's been my time. We got a restoration from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Arizona, and then we got their Geochron back for restoration. And they had, the scientists down there on their own had retrofitted their Geochron with LED bulbs. And we went, oh, why don't we do that? And so we figured out how to do it ourselves, look at their design, and Geochrons and restorations are done with LED bulbs.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's really good to hear. Somebody here has just said, John 20. I'm just reading what it says. Digital 2.4K. Is that the latest version? Yeah. So I mean, one of the questions I think as well, I'm reading between other comments, is there only one version of this, or do you, when you order it, do you have to order the ham radio version?
Okay. Yes. So the newest version is 2. The ham radio bundle that I've talked about on all Atlas platforms. If you get a used Geochron digital and it is a version 2 or looks like a sandwich, it is not fast ham radio bundle. The ham radio bundle is an addition to the base unit. The base unit comes with aviation and weather and most of the things that I talked about. But the ham radio bundle specific is $16 per year, and a couple bucks a month. And to own the unit, you can try it. You can try it out if you like it, and then if you want to use it, then you can do it through our website. Okay,
and that was, I think, I just want to check with you. It's only because we're just losing a little bit of audio occasionally. You said $16 a year, was that right? 16?
Yeah. Let me tell you exactly. Just a moment.
It's okay. It's just a rough idea, and obviously that gives you the. Beg your pardon, Patrick. Go ahead.
Sure. Dollars. It's $5.70 per month.
Right. Oh, 60. Okay, that's fine. And of course that enables you, I guess, to put all the carry on the development of it, and for people who buy one to keep it up to date, to have all these extra facilities.
Well, what we discovered was, in the beginning, we were just saying, get all this data for free. We found out that that was a great way to go at it because it takes work to keep
of course
data coming.
I think most people, probably most of us, are now getting used to the fact of paying things on subscription anyway. But it's wonderful, and I think with so many people taking interest in it, maybe I'll contact your UK dealer and we'll do a little ad or something together so we really get clear about what the costs are and things, because I think there's quite a few people here who are interested in it. And I'm going to let you go there because I think that's the end of our questions anyway. And I'm very conscious that you're in one of your customers' houses. So once again, thanks very much to Dr. Hine. I'll send you a link to this and you'll be able to watch it later on as well. And we hope, of course, if you do make it to England for the Hamfest, then I hope to be coming, and I'm sure several of my colleagues and friends as well in the club are going to be coming. So we'll hopefully see you there.
Great. Well, hope to be there.
Yeah. Well,
I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't been to Europe since I was a teenager. I'd love to come back.
Okay, well, we would love to see you, and so maybe we'll see you then. I think that would be great. But Patrick, thank you very much indeed. To say once again, thanks to Dr. Hine for your customer and for letting him use his house for this, and for you sharing the story of this wonderful gadget. Really is brilliant. And we wish you well and safe travels to Dayton, which I guess you're going to get there in the next couple of days.
I will.
All right. All the best. Thank you ever so much to Patrick, KJ7ZSU. Take care.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. There we are. Sorry about the internet wasn't great there, but I'm sure we totally understand. And I seriously respect to him for not sort of cancelling. I think most people, if they realised that they were going to be on the move, travelling between states and things, would have just said, I'll need to do it another time. So huge respect to him for doing that, and to his customer as well for letting us do it in his house. So that's about it. I hope you've really enjoyed that. If there is... I'm not trying to say that there might be any kind of deal or anything like that, but I mean, if there is a lot of you interested in this product, maybe it might be worth the club approaching the supplier, and maybe there might be some small saving or something to be made. I know we're not normally a commercial organisation, but it seems to me we do sometimes get club deals and things together. So if you are seriously interested in one of these things, if you'd like to drop me an email, usual address, radio@dcpmicro.com, here it comes now. And if you're interested in that, let me know, and I'll contact the supplier, and maybe we can see you do something. There might be able to at least save some shipping or something like that. But that's about it for NARC Live. Once again, really, I mean, as I said, when I first talked to Patrick or communicated with him about a week ago to set up this, and he was not sure where he was going to be, and I thought, well, is this going to work out? I'm absolutely delighted that we were able to do it. So it's really good. Thank you very much indeed to Patrick. And thanks to you also for watching. So we will see you in 2 weeks' time on NARC Live. Just to remind you again what we're doing next Wednesday, the 25th of May, we're meeting at the CNS School. And if you're involved with training, or you'd like to be involved with training to keep people, get people up to date in our hobby, then we've got a little meeting going on there. But for everybody else, it will be a social. And then we'll be coming back here in 2 weeks' time for NARC Live. Actually, which I think, I'm pretty right in seeing from that slide, it's Hans Summers talking about his brand new transceiver. So you'll be able to see all of the club program though for the whole of the summer on the weekend's newsletter and on our website. But for now, from Tammy M0TC,
goodbye,
and from me, David G7URP, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week at the club or the week after for NARC Live. Until then, take care. Bye bye.